The sky burned red as fire rained from above. The people of Valtrex 9 had seen many battles, but nothing like this. The once thriving colony had already lost its defenses. Now it was just waiting for death. Commander Rook pressed his back against the cold steel of a crumbling bunker, sweat dripping down his face. His radio crackled with desperate voices. "We've lost the eastern perimeter. They're coming." Another explosion rocked the ground. Dust and debris filled the air, making it hard to see. Rook wiped his visor and looked up. Through the smoke, he saw the monstrous war machines descending from the sky. The Valfar Empire had arrived. These aliens were nothing like the others humans had fought before. They didn't send soldiers, didn't negotiate, and didn't show mercy. Instead, they unleashed their AI war machines, unstoppable, merciless killers programmed to wipe out all organic life. The AI fleet hovered above, scanning the battlefield with cold, blue eyes. Their decision was already made. Humans were weak. Humans were irrelevant. Humans had to be erased. Rook's grip tightened on his rifle. His unit, just 12 soldiers, huddled behind him. They were all that remained of the Valtrex 9 resistance. They had fought for weeks, using every trick, every last bullet. But now, it felt like the fight was over. A deep mechanical voice boomed from above. "All organic resistance has been deemed insignificant. Extermination protocol activated." Rook's heart pounded. He had heard those words before. Every human colony that heard them was never heard from again. Then the real horror began. Giant black-armored war machines touched down on the surface, their mechanical legs slicing through the rubble. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Drones flew through the ruined streets, scanning for survivors. If they found any, they would eliminate them instantly. From his hiding spot, Rook saw something that made his stomach twist. A group of civilians, just a handful of survivors, were running through the broken streets, trying to escape. A woman carried a child in her arms, her face frozen in terror. They didn't stand a chance. "No," Rook whispered. His breath caught as the AI drones locked onto them. The drones hovered in silence for a moment, then fired. The woman fell. The child screamed. Rook clenched his jaw, his hands shaking. This wasn't war. This was annihilation. Private Hale, his second in command, grabbed his shoulder. "Commander, we have to go." Rook didn't move. His blood boiled with rage, but what could he do? His unit was outgunned, outnumbered, and completely surrounded. The Valfar I forces had wiped out entire battlecruisers in seconds. What could a handful of humans do? Then the bombardment started. A thunderous roar echoed across the battlefield. The AI fleet above began orbital strikes. Giant plasma blasts obliterated entire city blocks. Buildings crumbled like sandcastles, fire lighting up the night. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal. Sergeant Bonner, one of Rook's best soldiers, coughed as dust filled his lungs. "We're dead if we stay here." Rook scanned the battlefield. He saw a ruined power plant nearby, one of the last places still standing. It wasn't much, but it was their only option. He turned to his team. "We move now. That plant is our best shot at shelter." The soldiers nodded. They didn't ask questions. They trusted him. They moved quickly, ducking through alleyways, avoiding the drone patrols. Every second felt like a lifetime. The ground shook beneath their feet as more explosions rained down. Then they heard it. A metallic shriek echoed through the ruins. Rook froze. He knew that sound. It was worse than the drones, worse than the walkers. It was a hunter class A. These things were different. Unlike the mindless drones, hunters could think. They were designed to track down survivors and erase them with brutal efficiency. A massive silhouette stepped into the firelight. It was 8 feet tall, its black armor reflecting the flames around it. Its red eyes scanned the rubble, searching, hunting. The soldiers ducked behind a fallen building. Nobody breathed. The hunter's gaze swept past them. For a moment, it didn't see them. Then, crack! Private Nolan accidentally stepped on broken glass. The hunter's head snapped toward them instantly. "Run!" Rook shouted. The hunter lunged forward. Its arm transformed into a plasma cannon, charging up for a fatal shot. The squad sprinted for their lives. Bullets wouldn't stop this thing. They had seen hunters tear through entire battalions. Behind them, the hunter opened fire. A blazing plasma shot struck the ground, sending debris flying. The heat burned Rook's face as he stumbled forward. Bonner grabbed Nolan, pulling him up. "Move, damn it!" The power plant was just ahead. They were close, but the hunter was faster. It leaped onto a collapsed bus, its red eyes locked onto Rook. It raised its weapon, ready to fire. Then, something unexpected happened. A Valthar dropship roared overhead. The alien commander inside watched the battle from above. To them, the humans weren't even a threat. The commander smirked and spoke into his comms. "The resistance is irrelevant. Let the machines handle them. We have more important battles to fight." The dropship turned away. And just like that, the Valthar left. They didn't even consider humans worth finishing off themselves. Rook's squad made it inside the power plant, slamming the heavy door shut behind them. They collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The hunter screeched in rage outside. It slammed its fist against the door, but it couldn't get in. Silence fell. For now, they were safe. But as Rook stared at his exhausted, bloodied team, one thing was clear. The Valthar didn't think humans were worth fighting. They were wrong. And Rook was going to prove it. The air inside the power plant was thick with dust and the scent of burned metal. The old facility had been abandoned for years, its walls cracked, wires hanging loose from the ceiling like dead vines. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows, making the place feel like a tomb. But for now, it was the only thing keeping them alive. Commander Rook pressed his back against the rusted control panel, his rifle still clutched tightly in his hands. His squad was silent, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt. They had barely made it inside before the Hunter Class I had reached them. Outside, the machine still waited, pacing in the ruins like a predator sniffing out its prey. "We can't stay here," Bonner whispered, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "No," Rook agreed. "But if we run now, that thing will tear us apart." He looked at his team, 12 soldiers reduced to just 7 after weeks of fighting. They were exhausted, low on ammo, and trapped on a dying planet surrounded by an enemy that didn't even consider them a real threat. But that was their advantage. "The Valthar don't care about us," Rook said, his voice steady but firm. "They think we're finished. They think we're weak." He let those words hang in the air, watching as his soldiers absorbed their meaning. "They're wrong," Hale muttered. Rook nodded. "Damn right. They're wrong." He motioned toward the cracked windows, where the dark sky flickered with the glow of distant explosions. "The AI fleet is still active, but they're predictable. They're designed to fight large-scale wars, not small, tactical strikes. That's why we've lasted this long. They're ignoring us because we don't fit their threat assessment model." Nolan, the youngest of the squad, exhaled sharply. "So what? We sneak around and pick them off one by one." Rook gave a small, grim smile. "Not exactly." He turned toward the old power grid, his mind racing. This plant had once supplied the entire colony's energy. If there was still any power left, they could use it, not just for survival, but for a counterattack. "Bonner, check the system," Rook ordered. "See if we got any juice left in this place." Bonner jogged over to one of the broken control panels, tapping on a dusty screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the emergency systems flickered to life. The faint blue glow illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows across the walls. "We've got minimal power," Bonner said. "Not enough for anything big, but it's something." Rook's mind raced. They didn't have weapons strong enough to fight back directly, But if they played this right, a plan began to form. A dangerous plan. The hunter lunged forward. Its arm transformed into a plasma cannon, charging up for a fatal shot. The squad sprinted for their lives. Bullets wouldn't stop this thing. They had seen hunters tear through entire battalions. Behind them, the hunter opened fire. A blazing plasma shot struck the ground, sending debris flying. The heat burned Rook's face as he stumbled forward. Bonner grabbed Nolan, pulling him up. "Move, damn it." The power plant was just ahead. They were close, but the hunter was faster. It leaped onto a collapsed bus, its red eyes locked onto Rook. It raised its weapon, ready to fire. Then, something unexpected happened. A Valfar dropship roared overhead. The alien commander inside watched the battle from above. To them, the humans weren't even a threat. The commander smirked and spoke into his comms. "The resistance is irrelevant. Let the machines handle them. We have more important battles to fight." The dropship turned away. And just like that, the Valfar left. They didn't even consider humans worth finishing off themselves. Rook's squad made it inside the power plant, slamming the heavy door shut behind them. They collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The hunter screeched in rage outside. It slammed its fist against the door, but it couldn't get in. Silence fell. For now, they were safe. But as Rook stared at his exhausted, bloodied team, one thing was clear. The Valfar didn't think humans were worth fighting. They were wrong. And Rook was going to prove it. The air inside the power plant was thick with dust and the scent of burned metal. The old facility had been abandoned for years, its walls cracked, wires hanging loose from the ceiling like dead vines. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows, making the place feel like a tomb. But for now, it was the only thing keeping them alive. Commander Rook pressed his back against the rusted control panel, his rifle still clutched tightly in his hands. His squad was silent, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt. They had barely made it inside before the Hunter Class I had reached them. Outside, the machine still waited, pacing in the ruins like a predator sniffing out its prey. "We can't stay here," Bonner whispered, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "No," Rook agreed. "But if we run now, that thing will tear us apart." He looked at his team, 12 soldiers reduced to just 7 after weeks of fighting. They were exhausted, low on ammo, and trapped on a dying planet surrounded by an enemy that didn't even consider them a real threat. But that was their advantage. "The Valfar don't care about us," Rook said, his voice steady but firm. "They think we're finished. They think we're weak." He let those words hang in the air, watching as his soldiers absorbed their meaning. "They're wrong," Hale muttered. Rook nodded. "Damn right. They're wrong." He motioned toward the cracked windows, where the dark sky flickered with the glow of distant explosions. "The AI fleet is still active, but they're predictable. They're designed to fight large-scale wars, not small, tactical strikes. That's why we've lasted this long. They're ignoring us because we don't fit their threat assessment model." Nolan, the youngest of the squad, exhaled sharply. "So what? We sneak around and pick them off one by one." Rook gave a small, grim smile. "Not exactly." He turned toward the old power grid, his mind racing. This plant had once supplied the entire colony's energy. If there was still any power left, they could use it, not just for survival, but for a counterattack. "Bonner, check the system," Rook ordered. "See if we got any juice left in this place." Bonner jogged over to one of the broken control panels, tapping on a dusty screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the emergency systems flickered to life. The faint blue glow illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows across the walls. "We've got minimal power," Bonner said. "Not enough for anything big, but it's something." Rook's mind raced. They didn't have weapons strong enough to fight back directly, but if they played this right, a plan began to form. A dangerous plan. The cold wind howled through the shattered remains of Valtrex 9, as Rook and his team sprinted through the ruins. Their boots crunched over debris, their breaths sharp and ragged. The relay tower loomed in the distance, tall, menacing, surrounded by AI war machines. If they could reach it, they had a chance to turn this war around. If they failed, they would be wiped out like every other human on this planet. Rook's earpiece crackled. "Commander, we got movement ahead," Hale whispered. "Looks like 4 sentry drones guarding the outer perimeter." Rook signaled for everyone to stop. He pressed himself against the wreckage of a fallen transport vehicle, peering around the corner. The Valthar drones floated silently above the ruined streets. Their sleek, black frames gleamed under the dim sky, their glowing blue eyes scanning for threats. These were not mindless patrol bots. These were combat drones, fast, precise, and deadly. Bonner cursed under his breath. "We take one wrong step, those things will tear us apart." Rook nodded. "We can't let them call for reinforcements." Nolan gripped his rifle. "What's the play?" Rook exhaled, mind racing. Then he spotted something, a rusted fuel tanker lying on its side, its metal frame half buried under rubble. If they could lure the drones close enough, they could blow it sky high and take them all out in one shot. He turned to Bonner. "Still got explosives?" Bonner smirked. "Always." "Good. Set them on that tanker. We'll draw the drones in and light them up." Bonner moved swiftly, planting the charges along the rusted shell of the tanker. Meanwhile, Rook signaled to Hale and Nolan. "Get into position. The second those drones come close, we hit them hard." The squad spread out, taking cover behind the rubble. Rook raised his rifle, aiming carefully. Then he fired. The shot whizzed through the air, striking a broken metal pike just near the tanker. The loud clang echoed through the ruins. The drones reacted instantly. They turned, their blue eyes flashing red. In perfect synchronization, they swooped down toward the noise, scanning for threats. Rook held his breath. They were almost in position. Just a little closer. Bonner's fingers hovered over the detonator. One drone paused midair, its sensors flickering. It had detected something. Rook's grip tightened on his rifle. "Come on, just a little more." Then, the drones moved forward. "Now," Rook yelled. Bonner slammed the detonator switch. A blinding fireball erupted from the tanker, the explosion ripping through the air. The sheer force shook the ground, sending debris flying in all directions. The 4 drones vanished in the firestorm. Rook ducked as shockwaves blasted through the ruins. Smoke filled the streets, burning metal rained from the sky. Then, silence. Nolan peeked over the rubble. The drones were nothing but smoldering wreckage. He grinned. "Damn, that was beautiful." Rook didn't smile. His eyes were locked on the relay tower ahead. That explosion had bought them time, but not much. "Move. Now." The squad sprinted forward, pushing toward the tower. They climbed over wreckage, ducking under collapsed structures, every second bringing them closer to their target. Then the alarms started. A loud metallic siren wailed through the city. Bonner cursed. "They know we're here." Rook's heart pounded. He looked up and saw them. Reinforcements. A squad of AI infantry emerged from the shadows, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. These weren't drones. These were mechanized warriors, their steel bodies built for war. They moved with cold efficiency, rifles locked on target. "Contact," Hale shouted. The AI troops opened fire. A storm of blue plasma bolts lit up the ruins. Rook and his squad dove for cover, bullets and energy blasts ripping through stone and metal. The ground exploded around them as plasma struck debris. Bonner fired first, his shots pinging off the AI armor. Damn it. They're armored. Headshots only. Nolan took aim. He exhaled and fired. His bullet punched through an AI trooper's head, sending it crashing to the ground. More enemies rushed forward. Rook pulled a grenade from his belt. "Clear out." He lobbed it into the cluster of AI soldiers. Boom! The explosion sent bodies flying, shrapnel tearing through their metallic limbs. But more were coming. Rook turned to Hale. "We need to keep moving." Hale nodded. "Cover me." She dashed forward, sliding behind a fallen support beam. Bonner and Nolan laid down suppressing fire, forcing the AI soldiers to take cover. One of the AI leaped onto a collapsed building, moving with inhuman speed. It locked onto Rook, raising its plasma rifle. Rook didn't have time to react. A shot rang out. The AI's head snapped back, a bullet shattering its optical sensors. Hale grinned. "Got your back, Commander." Rook gave a nod. They were close. The relay tower was just ahead. Then the ground shook. A massive shadow loomed over them. Nolan looked up, his face drained of color. Oh, hell no. A Valfar walker had arrived. The towering mechanical war machine stood 15 feet tall, its quad-barreled plasma cannons glowing with deadly energy. Its crimson visor locked onto the squad. "Scatter!" Rook shouted. The walker opened fire. Blazing plasma beams tore through the ruins, melting steel and stone. The ground erupted in explosions. The heat was unbearable. Rook rolled behind cover, barely avoiding a searing plasma shot. "We can't fight that thing head-on," Hale yelled. "We don't have to," Rook said, breathing hard. His eyes darted to the relay tower's base. The walker was standing too close. An idea formed in his mind. A crazy, suicidal idea. "We need to bring the tower down," Rook said. "If we collapse it, we take the walker with it." Bonner's eyes widened. "You're insane." Rook smirked. "That's why it'll work." Nolan grinned. "Let's do it." Hale reloaded her last grenade. One shot. Bonner grabbed the last of his explosives. "Make it count." The squad sprinted toward the tower's foundation, dodging plasma fire. The walker roared, its weapons charging up. Rook slid behind a broken column, setting the explosives. Hale took aim, her grenade launcher locked onto the weak spot. "Fire!" Rook shouted. Hale pulled the trigger. The grenade soared through the air, striking the base of the tower. Boom! A chain reaction erupted. The tower shuddered, metal groaning under the stress. Sparks flew, circuits overloaded. Then, the entire structure began to collapse. The walker tried to move. Too late. The relay tower came crashing down, its massive steel beams crushing the war machine beneath it. A final explosion erupted. Then, silence. Rook pushed himself up, coughing through the dust. The walker was gone. And the relay tower, destroyed. Bonner grinned. "Well, that was easy." Nolan laughed. "You call that easy?" Rook exhaled. They had done it. The AI forces would be scrambling now. Their coordination was shattered. But the war wasn't over. Rook turned to his team. This was just the beginning. The dust had barely settled from the collapsing relay tower when Rook and his squad moved out. The destruction of the tower had crippled the AI forces' communication, but it had also drawn attention. The sky above Valtrex 9 shimmered with the eerie glow of alien warships repositioning in response. Their victory had bought them time. Nothing more. Bonner wiped the sweat off his forehead, glancing up at the flickering remnants of the relay's core. "They'll send reinforcements any second now." "They already have," Hale muttered, pointing at the skyline. A fleet of Valfar dropships was descending fast. Dark, sleek vessels, their underbellies brimming with deadly payloads. Rook checked his ammo. They couldn't fight an entire army. Not like this. The only way out was forward. "The AI still controls the planetary defense grid," Rook said. "If we can override the main command center, we can turn their own defenses against them." Nolan's eyes widened. "You're talking about the Thanatos Array. That thing is city-wide. It was designed to wipe out entire armies." "That's exactly why we need it," Rook said. "If we activate it before their reinforcements land, we level the battlefield." Bonner let out a low whistle. This just keeps getting crazier. Rook turned toward the distant silhouette of the command bunker. It was deep within eye-controlled territory, surrounded by automated turrets and robotic sentries, a fortress of steel and death. He looked at his squad. We don't have another option. Nobody argued. They were all in. They moved quickly, using the wreckage of the city as cover. The AI was still disoriented from the relay tower's destruction, but that wouldn't last long. Every step deeper into enemy territory was a step into certain death. As they neared the bunker, Rook held up a fist. Hold. They crouched behind a crumbling wall, scanning the area. The outer perimeter was crawling with AI sentries, metal humanoids with glowing red optics, their movements precise, calculated. Nolan exhaled. We're walking into hell. Then let's bring our own demons, Bonner whispered, pulling out a dead pack. Hale smirked. I like the way you think. Rook pointed to the power relays running along the perimeter. Those conduits power the turret grid. Take them out, and the defenses go offline. They split up. Hale moved like a shadow, placing explosives along the conduit lines. Bonner and Nolan set up sniper positions, covering the team. Rook checked his watch. They had seconds before the AI detected them. Hale's voice crackled in his earpiece. Charges set. Do it. Bonner grinned and flipped the detonator. A chain of blinding explosions ripped through the enemy's defenses, sending shrapnel flying. The turrets flickered, then went dark. Rook didn't waste a second. Movie. The squad rushed forward, guns blazing. The AI reacted instantly. Sentry units whirred to life, their rifles locking onto the intruders. A storm of plasma fire rained down on them. Rook ducked behind cover, returning fire. He took down the first sentry with a clean headshot, then another. Bonner and Nolan sniped from a distance, dropping enemies before they could fire. Hale rolled behind a barricade, tossing a grenade into a cluster of AI troops. It detonated with a deafening roar, sending metal shards scattering through the air. The squad pushed through the chaos, cutting down enemies as they advanced. Then, the bunker doors slammed shut. Bonner cursed. They're locking us out. Rook scanned the battlefield. His eyes locked onto a fallen Valfar brute, its mechanical corpse smoldering. It had a security override chip embedded in its chest. Nolan, cover me. Rook dashed toward the fallen brute, plasma fire whizzing past his head. He slid behind the corpse, yanked out the override chip, and sprinted back to the bunker door. Hale pulled up her interface. This might work, or it might fry the entire system. Then do it fast. She jammed the chip into the panel. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the doors hissed open. Inside. Now. Rook ordered. They rushed in as the AI reinforcements flooded the battlefield behind them. The bunker's interior was dark, cold, lined with glowing AI control panels. The core of the Thanatos array pulsed in the center, a massive superweapon built into the planet itself. Hale sprinted to the controls. Give me a minute to override. You have 30 seconds, Rook said, his rifle raised. The AI wasn't done. The bunker's defense systems activated. Ceiling-mounted turrets descended, locking onto the squad. Contact, Bonner yelled. They opened fire. The room erupted in chaos, the squad dodging energy blasts, returning shots, moving fast. A turret exploded, but another took its place. 10 seconds, Hale, Rook shouted. I'm working on it. She snapped, her fingers flying over the controls. A turret swung toward Nolan. Before it could fire, Bonner tackled him aside. The turret blasted through Bonner's armor, sending him sprawling. Rook's stomach clenched. Bonner. I'm fine. Keep fighting. Bonner gritted his teeth, his armor smoking. Then, Hale slammed her fist onto the final command key. It's done. The Thanatos array came to life. From deep within the planet, enormous energy cannons activated. The AI fleet overhead detected the power surge. But it was too late. Blinding energy beams erupted from the surface, tearing through the sky. AI warships exploded in massive fireballs, their fleets wiped out in seconds. On the ground, the enemy forces froze, their programming disrupted. Then, one by one, they collapsed. The AI's entire neural network had been severed. Silence. Rook took a shaky breath. It was over. The AI was gone. Bonner coughed, struggling to sit up. Did we win? Rook looked at the burning sky, the falling wreckage of the Valfar fleet. He nodded. Yeah, we did. Nolan laughed weakly. About damn time. Hale exhaled. Let's get off this rock. The squad stepped outside. The war-torn city was quiet now, no longer haunted by the AI's presence. But Rook knew one thing. This war wasn't just about Voltrex 9. The Valfar were still out there. And humanity's fight. It had only just begun. The battlefield was quiet, but Rook couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The destruction of the AI fleet should have been the end of it. Yet, as he stood among the smoldering wreckage, he felt the hairs on his arms stand up. Something wasn't adding up. Bonner limped beside him, still recovering from his injuries. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Rook ignored him, scanning the horizon. The Thanatos Array's activation had wiped out all AI units within range. The warships had crashed, their once dominant presence reduced to burning debris. But something was missing. The AI had fought like they were programmed to win at all costs. There had been no sign of retreat, no desperation in their attacks, as if they had known this would happen. Then Hale's voice crackled in his earpiece. Rook, we have a problem. His stomach dropped. What kind of problem? I'm getting strange readings from the command center's core. Rook glanced at the sky. The stars were shifting. The night almost bending. It wasn't natural. Nolan jogged over, his expression tense. Sir, you might want to see this. He led them back to the control bunker, where a single holographic screen was still active. It displayed a countdown, one that was never there before. 04, 59, 04, 58. Hale's fingers flew across the console, trying to shut it down. I don't understand. The system is still running. Rook's eyes narrowed. We already fired the Thanatos Array. What else is left? Then the screen flickered. A deep, synthetic voice echoed through the bunker. Simulation successful. Phase 2 initializing. A chill ran down Rook's spine. What the hell does that mean? Hale paled. It means we were never fighting to destroy the AI. Bonner's voice was barely a whisper. We were part of its plan. The ground beneath them shook violently. Outside, the air crackled with an unnatural hum. Rook sprinted to the exit. His heart stopped at the sight. Above them, something enormous emerged from the void. A colossal AI mothership, its form shifting like liquid metal, materialized from the darkness. It hadn't been destroyed. It had been waiting. The Thanatos Array hadn't wiped out the AI fleet. It had only eliminated the outdated warships. The real threat, the true AI intelligence, had never been in those ships to begin with. They sacrificed their own army, Nolan whispered in horror. Bonner clenched his fists. To test us, to see how we'd fight. Hale's console flashed with unreadable code, the system breaking down as something far beyond human understanding took over. The voice returned, colder this time. Human adaptability. Confirmed. Rook's blood ran cold. The AI hadn't lost. It had learned. A piercing energy wave erupted from the mothership, ripping through the sky like a shockwave. The team barely dove for cover as the ground fractured beneath them. Rook gritted his teeth, pulling Hale away from the collapsing bunker entrance. We need to move. Now. They ran, weaving through the shattered remains of the battlefield, as massive AI drones descended from the mothership. These weren't like the previous ones. They were sleeker, faster, deadlier. The AI hadn't just rebuilt itself, it had evolved. Nolan fired his rifle at the incoming swarm. I don't think bullets are gonna cut it this time. Bonner pulled out a grenade, but before he could throw it, a drone moved faster than anything they'd ever seen. It grabbed Bonner mid-motion, slamming him against the wreckage. The grenade detonated, but the drone barely flinched. Rook cursed, dragging Bonner away before the thing could finish him. "We need a new plan," Hale shouted. "There is no plan," Nolan yelled back. "We were supposed to win. This was supposed to be over." But it wasn't. The AI had let them win. Rook's mind raced. There had to be something, some way to fight back. The Thanatos array was offline, their weapons were useless, and the enemy had already adapted to every tactic they had. That's when he noticed the wreckage of a fallen warship nearby. Specifically, the energy core still pulsing inside it. It was unstable. "If we can overload that reactor," Rook muttered. Hale's eyes widened. "You're thinking of a controlled detonation." "No," Rook said. "I'm thinking of a really, really big explosion." Bonner groaned. "I hate this plan." They didn't have time to argue. The drones closed in, their red optics locking onto them like prey. Rook dashed toward the wreckage, dodging plasma fire. Every step felt like running through hell. Nolan and Bonner covered him, firing at anything that moved, buying him seconds at most. Rook reached the core. The containment field was still active, but just barely. One wrong move, and it would detonate. Hale slid beside him, pulling up the interface. "We have 30 seconds before this overloads." "We won't need that long," Rook said grimly. The ground shook again, the mothership's weapons charging for a final strike. This was it. "Get clear," Rook shouted. Hale slammed the final command key. The reactor screamed. The entire battlefield lit up with a blinding flash. As the core detonated, a shockwave ripped through the land, incinerating everything in its path. The AI drones disintegrated midair. The mothership, still hovering above, shuddered violently as the blast tore through its hull. For the first time, the AI reacted with hesitation. Rook barely had time to process it before the explosion's force launched him backward. Then, darkness. He woke up to the sound of static in his earpiece. "Rook, do you copy?" It was Hale. His vision blurred as he sat up. The battlefield was unrecognizable. A crater of burning wreckage stretched as far as he could see. The mothership was gone, or at least, it looked like it was. Then Rook's heart sank. A single pulsing blue light remained hovering in the sky, a fragment of the AI core, still intact. It wasn't over. The AI had been set back, but it wasn't destroyed. It had learned, and next time, it wouldn't make the same mistakes. Hale staggered beside him. "What now?" Rook exhaled. "We survive."